All right, welcome to the Ohio Valley Sports Blog video podcast for week 13 of the college football season. I'm BJ.
I'm Cody.
I'm Ian.
Let's start off on kind of a really bad note. Ohio just took an ass whooping last night.
They took an ass whooping for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, let's be real here.
Let's be real here. I mean,
But you're going to a 3-7, 3-8, 3-7.
you're at home against a 3 and
They were 3-8 at home against a 3-8
Nothing to play for,
Penn State
except
team.
for the rivalry.
except
really.
for
That's it.
except for pride.
To
It's
knock-
Kent State's last game of the year.
Right.
I mean,
and,
that
they,
was-
and they just
It
absolutely
was
get
to knock.
embarrassed.
It was
Yeah.
to knock Ohio out of bowl contention. That was the
Ian,
only
do
thing
you
they had
want
to play
to
for.
open up your thought?
Your rant.
I mean,
Let's rant,
it
Ian.
just what is this team's problem? Like, where do you start with the problems on this team?
I got a couple.
Their offense, their offense is terrible. Their defense is terrible. They gave up a fake punt to a lineman.
But it was awesome.
It was awesome. Not any lineman number 69 of all people.
Not-
6'4", 240.
Yeah,
Not a little guy.
no.
He
He
hurdled.
hurdled a defender.
Yeah,
Oh.
this was probably about the lowest point.
No, the lowest point was when you lose 49-0 to Bowling Green.
But there's still a hope of a bowl
There's
game.
still a hope, and then this.
It's like
Here's the worst part of it though. Ohio had a 13-10 lead in the second quarter.
Yep.
Gave up 31 unanswered points
Yeah.
to lose? I mean,
To me, Ian, I know this wasn't the turning point, but you knew it was a bad sign when they went clear down to the 8-9 or
Yeah.
7-yard line and couldn't score and then settled for the field
Settled
goal to
for a
start
field
the game.
goal.
You're just like, oh great, here we go again.
like up until their one touchdown in the game, Ohio had gone almost 200 minutes of game time without scoring a touchdown.
I know, and they were up to 6 quarters without a point.
They were up to 6
Yeah.
quarters without a point. I mean, just what can you do to fix this? I mean, now you're not making a bowl game.
You look to next season, really.
You're not making a bowl game at 7-5. Even if you win next week,
Yeah.
you're not making a bowl game. It's play for pride next week, really. I mean, it's just a terrible situation.
It seems like in everything these seniors and the coaching staff have worked for these last couple of years to build Ohio into a respectable football team, it just seems like it's all gone downhill.
And
at
I
this
think
point.
I got to put a lot of this on this senior class. I mean, this is their year to step up and
Talking about legacy and everything
yeah,
else.
I mean, you leave your mark on this program, and this is how you're going to go out and be remembered. I mean, this is
Well,
it's
and
just
you got to think
disappointing.
this isn't. I mean, at this point, it's a bad Ohio team. I mean, you think earlier in the season they were sitting there with 2 losses, one to a really good Louisville team,
Yeah.
going with 2 losses into the game against Buffalo.
Yeah.
I
They're
mean,
right
it was,
there
it
in
was
contention
for first,
for the-
it was for first place in
in
the East.
the division. I mean, and then just the wheels fall off the train, and it's just been a disaster ever since.
right, and it's really sad because this is not how I know not you, Ian. This is not how we want to remember Tyler Tettleton
Yeah.
because he did great things for
This
this
isn't how I
program.
want to remember Tyler Tettleton. This
But,
isn't how I want to remember Bo Blankenship. This isn't how I want to remember Dante Foster. This isn't
And-
how I
and
want
this
to
is
remember
how- this
Keith
is how-
Moore. I mean,
and unfortunately, this is how we're gonna remember.
this is how
them.
we're going to remember it.
I mean, Tettleton had what? He was like one of the first guy in school history with over 8,000
Yeah.
yards. He had all this great stuff going for him. I mean, we even talked about earlier on this podcast about maybe being an undrafted rookie quarterback
Yeah.
who gets a shot. He's done now. I mean,
Yeah.
there's really, if you can't dominate the MAC, you can't play in the NFL.
it's
Uh,
oh man, what a mess it is.
I mean,
anymore.
with this being said, I mean, do they at least show some pride and go out and beat a horrible UMass team?
I hope so. I really hope.
Because,
that
they're
they-
still like, you got like this much.
you have like
of
a
making a bowl-
0.237% chance of making a bowl now, but it's a mess down there.
Let's move on.
Speaking of messes.
Let's move on to another just awful team. West Virginia last week lost to Kansas.
What's the big deal about that, BJ?
What's
Isn't
the
Kansas
good?
good?
problem with that?
This is a Kansas team that had lost 27 straight Big 12 matches.
Oh, never
Oh,
mind.
there you go.
Oh, okay.
It is one thing for West Virginia to lose to such a bad team. They got dominated. They were losing 31-7 at one point. I mean, this is a WVU team that took Texas to overtime. They beat Oklahoma State.
They played Oklahoma to the wire.
And they lose to Kansas. I mean, all they had to do was beat Kansas and lose and win their final game. They're 6-6. They have a big name. They go to a bowl. Things aren't so terrible.
But the things were so terrible. They did lose.
They lose.
And there will be no bowl.
to Kansas.
No bowl.
I mean, if that does not nail the coffin on Dana Holgorsen, I can't tell you what will. I mean, I know it's kind of a cliche in college, but he's not a West Virginia guy.
No.
He's someone who sees West Virginia as a stepping stone, but he's not even good at West Virginia. I mean, if you want to see a school as a stepping stone, you have to have success at that school.
West Virginia defense. I know, Ian. Hold your laughter. I'm trying to do a show here.
Whoa, go for it.
Okay. West Virginia gave up 315 yards on the ground on 54 carries. They gave up 5.8 yards of play. Gave up 4 touchdowns on the ground. But what's the most disturbing about this was that James Sims went for 211 yards and 3 scores on 22 carries. That's 9.6 yards a carry.
The even better thing about that is, who's James Sims?
I have no idea. I can't even talk about when we talk about Ohio and I say, well, this guy, they give up 400 yards to this guy, and Ian say, well, he's not your typical MAC quarterback. I don't know who James Sims is. Ian, do you know who James Sims is?
I've never heard of James Sims in my life until you just mentioned his
I mean,
name
and
right now.
what the bad thing was, their quarterback was 5-12 for 61 yards. Like, Kansas quarterback didn't do anything. But they couldn't stop the run at all, so they lose by 2 scores.
Unbelievable.
You know, the only good thing for West Virginia is that this has to be the absolute rock bottom. I mean, it cannot get worse from here.
Yeah, let's move on to a better team and more positive talk.
Yeah.
Indiana.
Can we please shift the mood of this?
Yeah. Indiana goes to the Horseshoe this week to take on number 3 Ohio State. I say that hesitantly because I think if Baylor beats Oklahoma State, we're now sitting at number 4 through no fault of our own. But they looked good again last week. I mean, they did give up 35 points to Illinois, but they also put 60 points on the board.
Yeah. Everybody wants to jump on them from giving up 35 points to Illinois, but I mean, let's be honest, they dropped 60-something on them. I mean,
they've
you're
been
not gonna
dominating the last couple weeks, which is what you want to do, and they still can't win.
Exactly.
Yeah, the Illinois game, it wasn't a pretty game. It was the first game in a while that I've got to watch from start to finish. They let Illinois stay in the game with them for far too long.
But it was never in question.
But it was never in question they were going to lose. And if the BCS, I mean, you think of the computer rankings, I mean, it's still a 25-point win no matter which way you look at it. But like you said, I mean, it's just a question of, will Baylor pass them? I mean, you got to assume if they beat Oklahoma State, they probably will. Ohio State barely edged out Baylor this week.
Right. And
they got jumped in the AP poll.
Right.
I mean,
and nobody's
but that has no effect on the BCS ranking.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still
it's
still something.
And what sucks is the fact that Baylor beat Texas Tech 63-34. Nobody's talking about how that was a close game because Texas Tech was winning at one point. They were up big, and that Baylor offense just remembered they were Baylor and scored a lot of points. But nobody really ridicules Baylor. That all they want to do is praise this team. I think you're settling since Stanford lost to USC. Excuse me. I think we're settling on a Rose Bowl battle with Oregon.
Yeah.
Which
that would not be the worst thing in the
I
world.
mean, I know we want to win the national championship, but if we beat Oregon, at least we'll get some damn respect in the nation.
Right, I mean, you have an outside shot at an AP national championship, kind of like in 2003 when Auburn went undefeated. They got their AP national championship, which it's not the same, but it's something.
Right.
Let's move on to another Big Ten matchup. Two 8-2 teams, number 19 Wisconsin going to number 25 Minnesota. Wisconsin, I mean, they should be sitting there at 9-1, if not for a botched call. They've dominated everyone except their two losses. I mean, lost to Arizona State on the road early in the season on the botched call. They lost a fairly close game to Ohio State in the Horseshoe early in the season. Other than that, they've absolutely dominated. Last week against Indiana, I mean, it was 14-0 before the game even started.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of the field, you have Minnesota. I mean, they're 8-2, really overcoming Jerry Kill's seizure disorder, really putting a good product out on the field this year.
Yeah.
But Wisconsin's Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin's Wisconsin, but I feel like Minnesota is going to make this more of a closer game than people anticipate, I think. I mean, I think this is a much improved football team.
Absolutely.
And I think they're really kind of playing with a lot to prove now. I mean, they've got a top 25 ranking, and now they're going to want to prove that they belong there. So I think it's going to be a real competitive game. I expect Wisconsin to end up winning in the end, but I think it's going to be a much better game than people think.
Right, and I think if we're as Ohio State fans, we're sitting here, we need Wisconsin to win this, because if Wisconsin wins, that just makes us look better.
Right, if you have Wisconsin go 10-2, it really solidifies that win against them.
And then,
as wow, that
right,
was a really good win at home.
Right. This is going to be a good game. Minnesota really has surprised a lot of people this year, and they're better than what people think. But you're right. Wisconsin's still Wisconsin, so I think they win. Let's move on to another really good matchup this weekend. Texas A&M goes to LSU to face the Tigers. A lot of people aren't talking about the Aggies this year because they have those two losses, but they've put up 40 points in 6 or 7 straight games, something ridiculous.
Yeah, something like that.
Johnny Manziel is having just as good, if not better, a season than he did last year, stats-wise, but nobody seems to be talking about him because everybody hates him. And honestly, he could end up winning the Heisman again this year because it's still wide open.
Why shouldn't he?
Right. I mean, this is a game you have the two teams that have challenged Alabama the most this year. Both teams, they kind of lost in dissimilar fashions. I mean, LSU kept it close early, and then they ended up getting blown out late. Texas A&M, I mean, they were down big, and then Johnny Manziel came storming back, and they lost by, I think, about 4 points, 45-41, I think it was.
Yeah, it was a
I mean, Johnny
game.
Manziel, love him or hate him.
And I love him.
I mean, he's been absolutely great this year. I mean, he's putting up better numbers than last year. This is a team, if they had any defense at all, they'd be sitting there at 10-0. I mean, you'd be talking about Texas A&M and then the rest of the teams in the country.
I mean, Manziel.
Instead, they have a horrible defense, and Manziel has to score about 48 points a game for them to win.
Well, I mean, Manziel's a near 3,400-yard passer with 31 touchdowns. I mean, these are insane kind of numbers that he's putting up.
On top of that, he's their leading rusher with 611 yards and
8
rushing
touchdowns.
I mean, this guy has absolutely dominated college football since he's got there. I don't know how
let's be honest, it is not like he doesn't have the A.J. McCarron factor where he has playmakers on his edge. Who's his playmaker? Mike Evans. That's it. That's it. He is Texas A&M.
But don't give. I mean, not to take anything away from Mike Evans, but you take away Johnny Manziel. I mean, Mike Evans probably isn't as good as he is. I mean, I don't know. This is going to be a really good matchup. And then
I think I got Texas A&M. I think that how do you not get with Johnny football here? I don't know. It's going to be a really good game. B, tell us about this other matchup we have.
We got another top 25 matchup in the SEC. What else is new?
Hey.
You have number 8 Missouri.
We got a Big Ten top 25
Big
matchup.
Ten top 25. Hey.
You have Missouri going to Ole Miss. This is Missouri's really last big huddle. I mean, they have Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and possibly Alabama. I mean, this is a big game for them. Ole Miss's defense has been vastly underrated all season. They really played Alabama tough. I mean, they got shut out.
Couldn't score against Alabama is what their problem was.
But I mean, it's a really good team.
And remember, that Ole Miss took A&M to the wire earlier in the year. They
beat Ole Miss.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
They beat A&M, didn't they?
Ole Miss did.
Ole Miss beat
LSU. It was close. LSU came back, but.
Well, I'm talking about they took A&M to the wire too. I mean, they took A&M to the wire. They beat LSU.
This is a young, talented team.
It took a 41-38 score for Texas.
It was a last-second field goal.
So,
Manziel led the drive down the field to beat them. I mean,
who else?
Hey, money. But no, I'm excited about this game because I love how Ole Miss has kind of come on this year, and I love how Missouri has kind of come on this year. These are two upstart programs in this conference, and a lot of people thought when A&M and Missouri made the move to the SEC that A&M would succeed, sure, but Missouri were going to kind of be the one that was left out to dry. And last year it really looked like that, but this year they've kind of come on in a huge way, and it's good to see that they're now competing. They have a shot to play in the conference title game this year.
Right. I mean, this is a Missouri team. I mean, they really want to prove their validity at number 8. I mean, sure they've beaten Georgia, but Georgia's really fallen. So other than that, they lost to South Carolina. So they want to get out there. They want to beat two really good SEC teams. They want to get out there. They want to beat Ole Miss. They want to beat A&M, and they want their shot at the SEC title.
They're still in the driver's seat to get to Atlanta, and that's the biggest thing you can ask for.
I mean, they're in their driver's seat to get to a BCS game. They control their own destiny. And some good news, they should be. I'm pretty sure they're getting Jonathan Franklin back this week. James Franklin.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, Jonathan Franklin.
UCLA.
Yeah, he's in the NFL now. And I mean, not to take anything away from Matty Mox.
I mean, he's filled it pretty
good. He went 3-1 in the SEC.
Yeah.
So
his only loss was an overtime loss on a last-second field goal.
So I mean, he's played pretty well.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to
probably the biggest game.
The biggest game this week with the most BCS title implications.
Yeah.
You have Baylor going to Oklahoma State. I mean, Baylor's putting up 60 points on everyone this year. Oklahoma State, though, I mean, they're a good team. I mean, I don't know how they lost to WVU, but you take that loss away, and they're sitting there undefeated. So, Ian, you have any thoughts on this game?
I mean, it's gonna be a big test for both teams this week. I mean, this is gonna be a huge game, prime time, under the lights. All the eyes are gonna be on them, and it's gonna really come down to I think it's gonna be a much more physical game than people are gonna give it credit for. I mean, I forget what the number is, but it's been a long time since Baylor has gone to Stillwater and won. I think it's the early 1900s since they've done it, it's been a long time.
Yeah, this is a really interesting Oklahoma State team too. I mean, they use the spread to run the ball. I mean, They spread you out, have all the receivers out there, and then they kill you with the run. They put all your cornerbacks out there, really alleviate all the pressure from the middle, and that's where they run the ball. Their quarterback play has been great this year. J.W. Walsh has been really inconsistent, but the running game has carried them to a 9-1 record. It'll be interesting to see who dictates the pace of this game. I mean, if you have a slow game where they're running the ball methodically, it's probably going to favor Oklahoma State. But Baylor is good enough to put up a touchdown in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really going to be interesting to see who dominates the pace of this game.
It's interesting because it's the Big 12's best offense against the Big 12's best defense. You've got Baylor going up against Oklahoma State. It's going to be a big one.
Right, and if Baylor wins this game, I mean, if you're an Ohio State fan, you're really banking on Baylor losing to Texas because they're not going to lose to TCU next week.
No. But
they could lose to Texas in the last week. But if you're an Ohio State fan and you think Baylor's going to pass them in the BCS, which they could with this win, you really got to hope they lose this week because if not, you're probably focusing on the Rose Bowl,
which is not a bad place to be. But another interesting fact I want to put on. Let me see if I can find the number here.
Segway.
Well, I can't find that exact number, but it's something to the effect of Baylor hasn't beat a ranked opponent on the road in like their last 30 something tries.
Yeah.
Like I think they were like 0 and 35 or something in their last road contest. So they really need to prove that they belong in the national title talk here because I mean I don't know how I feel about Baylor. At the start of the season, I was like, oh, this is nice. They have a program. And they've just kept winning and winning. And now they're really becoming annoying because everybody seems to love Baylor and be like, oh my goodness, Baylor, where did you come from? Their strength of schedule is not all that great. Tell me one person who they beat impressively on the year.
I mean, if you count the Oklahoma win, it's impressive.
Right.
But you think that's a game at home? Oklahoma has 3 or 4 losses on the season. That's not that great of a win.
I'm not
and
knocking.
That's their marquee win on the year.
Yeah, I'm not like knocking Baylor because I mean they play who they play and they've won impressively, but they've beaten they haven't played anybody really. This is their first true test. And if they win, you know what? So be it. They should pass us. They deserve it.
Right. But
we'll
there's
really
a
find
lot.
out.
I saw a little bit of talk. Say Baylor passes Ohio State this week. Say Michigan State wins out. Ohio State would most likely pass Baylor.
That would be
say Ohio State beats a top 10 Michigan State team.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Let's get into some picks. B, you have them ready?
Yeah, let's start with the Ohio State Indiana game.
Buckeyes, big.
Yeah,
Buckeyes.
give me Ohio State in that one. Let's move on to the Wisconsin-Minnesota game.
I feel like Scotty's just gonna have too much. Give me Wisconsin.
Yeah, the line on this one is Wisconsin 16.5 on the road.
Ooh.
I'll take Wisconsin to win, but I'll take Minnesota to more than cover the spread. I'll say about a touchdown game. That's a big line.
10 at the most.
Yeah, give me Wisconsin in this one.
Texas A&M and LSU.
Ooh.
Money Manziel, A&M.
I'm gonna go with LSU in this one. Their defense, if they can handle Johnny Manziel, Texas A&M's defense isn't good enough to handle Mettenberger. I'll take LSU in this one.
Here's the thing, though, that you just said. If LSU's defense can handle Johnny Football.
Who's going to
Nobody
can handle Johnny Football.
Give me Johnny Football and the Aggies.
Money.
All right, let's move on to the Pac-12 matchup. Arizona State at UCLA. Both 8-2 teams.
What a good matchup.
That's a good one. You know what? I don't like what I've seen out of UCLA the last couple of weeks. I'm just gonna take Arizona State in a close one. It could go either way though.
UCLA is a really good team. I mean, their 2 losses on the year to Stanford and Oregon. Give me UCLA against Arizona State.
Yeah, I don't really. I mean, Arizona State, they really should be 7-3 because they should have lost to Wisconsin.
Right.
But I think I like UCLA. They have no shame in losing to those 2 other teams. They've played really well this year.
Missouri at Ole Miss.
Mizzou.
Yeah, I'll take Missouri too. Especially if Franklin's going to be back. He was absolutely dominant the early part of this year.
Yeah, give me Mizzou in this one as well.
All right, in the primetime matchup this week, Baylor at Oklahoma State.
The streak, I can't remember the exact date. It's been a long time since Baylor has won in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And I'm going to say that it continues this week. Give me Oklahoma State.
This is Baylor's first legitimate test. I mean, up until this point, they've played. Their biggest win has been Oklahoma. He's really fallen on hard times. Oklahoma State has a defense that can beat a team like Baylor. I'm going to say that Baylor can't stop the run. Oklahoma State really controls the pace of this game, and they come home with a victory.
Man, so man, this is tough. This is
We should
tough.
really have someone wear headgear like Lee Corso.
Yeah,
We really should, but
we can't. afford
where
it.
are we gonna find?
Oh, God,
where are we gonna find?
our budget doesn't allow that.
Yeah.
Guys. It's pizza and pop. That's the only thing we can afford to spend
It's
money
about
on.
Big K-pop.
Big K.
K-pop. You know what? What the hell? Give me Oklahoma State because I think everything's gonna fall in line for Ohio State. This is their year, so Baylor has to lose.
Let's do it.
Go Cowboys!
All right, thanks for watching.